The twin moons hung low over the alien city, their pale light shining through the temple's high windows. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and whispers. Hundreds of alien villagers stood in silence, their heads bowed, afraid to look too long at the center of the hall. There, beneath the stone arch of the Temple of Purity, a young alien girl knelt on the cold floor. Her name was Lyra. Silver bands locked her wrists behind her back, and the white glow from the temple torches painted her face with fear. Her long hair was tangled, her clothes torn from being dragged through the streets. Around her, the priests stood in a wide circle, their robes heavy with symbols that shimmered like molten gold. Their leader, High Priest Vorn, raised his staff and spoke in a deep, echoing voice. "Lyra of the Third Line," he said, his tone sharp and cruel. "You broke the sacred rule. You questioned the word of the gods." A low murmur swept through the crowd. Questioning the gods was not a small thing. It was the one thing no one ever did. Lyra lifted her chin slowly. Her voice trembled, but she didn't bow. "I only said the gods would never ask us to harm the innocent. That is not sin, it is truth," the priest hissed. One of them struck her across the face, leaving a bright red mark.
She didn't cry.
She only stared ahead, her eyes bright like firelight. At the edge of the hall, standing behind a line of guards, a human traveler watched the scene unfold. His name was Ethan Hale, a lost explorer from the United Colonies, stranded on this world after his ship crashed weeks ago. He had come to this temple seeking shelter, food, and answers about the strange planet that had trapped him. But now, he saw something else, something he couldn't ignore. He didn't understand the alien language, but the scene spoke for itself. The girl's pain, the priest's cruelty, the silence of the people, it all told the same story. Ethan's jaw tightened. His instincts screamed to stay quiet, not to interfere in another species' customs, but every muscle in his body tensed as the high priest raised his glowing staff above the girl's head. "She will be cleansed by the flame," Vorn declared. "Her doubt shall burn from her soul." The villagers whispered prayers. Some turned away, unable to watch. The temple lights dimmed, and a low hum filled the air as the stone platform beneath Lyra began to glow orange. Ethan felt the heat from where he stood. He saw the girl squeeze her eyes shut, whispering something under her breath. Maybe a prayer, maybe a goodbye. And that was it. Something inside him snapped. He stepped forward before he could stop himself. "Hey!" His voice rang out across the chamber. "Stop it." Every alien head turned toward him. The sound of his human accent hit the silence like thunder. The priest froze. The guard stiffened, uncertain what to do. Vorn turned his gaze toward the intruder, cold, glowing eyes meeting human blue. "You dare speak, off-worlder?" he growled. "This is not your concern." Ethan's heart pounded, but he didn't move back. "That girl hasn't done anything." "You can't just burn her," murmurs rippled through the crowd. The priest exchanged uneasy glances. No one had ever interrupted a ceremony of shame. Lyra's eyes opened wide. For the first time, she looked at him and really looked. A stranger, different from everyone else. His skin pale, his voice strange, but his eyes, human yet fierce and kind, she whispered softly. "Human." Vorn slammed his staff against the floor. Sparks flew. "Remove him!" Two guards approached, weapons glowing, but Ethan didn't back down. He raised his hand slightly. "I don't want trouble, but I won't let you kill her." "Kill?" Vorn sneered. "We do not kill. We purify. She's a child," Ethan said, voice sharp. "Where I come from, we protect them, not torture them." Gasps spread through the crowd again. Some aliens looked at each other. A few even nodded faintly, though fear quickly pulled their heads back down. Lyra felt something strange. Hope. No one had ever spoken for her, not even her own kind. The priests formed a tighter circle, their staffs rising, blue fire flickering along the floor. The air shimmered with energy. Vorn glared at Ethan. "Then you, human, will share her fate. Let your body burn beside hers. Let your tongue be silenced by the gods." Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd just turned himself into the target. But he couldn't back away now, not with the girl staring at him like he was her last chance. "Fine," he said quietly, almost to himself. "If that's what it takes." Vorn lifted his staff higher. The flames roared brighter. Lyra cried out as the heat surged. Ethan's mind raced. He scanned the glowing floor, the strange metal edges, the humming beneath the stone. His engineer's instincts kicked in. There was tech here, ancient but alive. He could hear the energy pulsing like a heartbeat, if he could just find the source. The priest began to chant louder. The crowd trembled. The orange light turned white-hot, and just before the fire touched Lyra's skin, Ethan moved. He lunged forward, grabbing her shoulder, pulling her toward him. The crowd screamed as the light burst in a flash so bright it swallowed the temple whole. When the glow faded, the chanting had stopped. The air was thick with smoke. Lyra was gone from the center of the circle, and so was the human. Smoke hung thick in the temple after the burst of light. The crowd screamed, rushing for the doors, their feet slamming against the stone floor. The glowing runes faded, leaving only the smell of burnt incense and fear. When the light dimmed, Ethan found himself on the ground, coughing. His ears rang. He blinked hard, trying to clear the haze. Around him, the circle of priests was broken. Half their glowing staffs shattered, and then he saw her. Lyra lay beside him, trembling, eyes wide open. The chains around her wrists were broken, melted apart by whatever energy had burst from the floor. Ethan grabbed her arm gently. "Hey, you okay?" She looked at him, breath shaking. Why did you—" Before she could finish, a thunderous voice echoed through the hall. "Seize them!" The priests, though shaken, rose again. The leader, High Priest Vorn, pointed his cracked staff at them. His voice was filled with fury. "The human has defiled the sacred ground. He has broken the seal." Guards rushed in from every doorway, their armor clanking, weapons glowing with the same orange energy that had nearly burned them alive. Ethan's heart pounded. "Move," he said, pulling Lyra to her feet. They ran toward the side corridor, dodging as beams of light cracked against the walls, sending shards of stone flying. The corridor twisted through the temple like a maze. Lyra stumbled beside him, her legs weak from the ritual. "Why did you help me?" she gasped. Ethan didn't look back. "Because I couldn't just watch." They burst into a wide chamber lined with giant alien statues. Blue fire burned in bowls at their feet. The walls shimmered with strange runes, alive with faint light. Lyra leaned against one of the statues, panting. Her hands shook as she tried to understand this human who had just risked his life for her. "No one ever stops the priests," she whispered. "You don't know what they'll do." Ethan looked around, searching for an exit. "I can guess, but I've faced worse things in the void than a bunch of bullies with fancy sticks." Lyra frowned at his words, not understanding bullies. But something in his tone made her eyes soften. "You shouldn't have come here," she said quietly. The heavy doors behind them burst open. Guards poured in. Ethan grabbed a fallen metal rod from the floor, a broken torch stand, and swung it like a weapon. "Go," he yelled. "Find another way out." Lyra hesitated, fear freezing her feet. But as a guard lunged toward him, she suddenly darted forward, grabbing a loose fragment of stone and smashing it into the guard's mask. The alien screamed and fell back. Ethan blinked, surprised. "You can fight?" Lyra met his eyes, a spark of courage shining through. "I'm not helpless." They moved together now, dodging between statues as energy blasts tore through the air. The heat burned their skin and the sound was deafening. Ethan slammed the rod into another guard's chest, knocking him down. Lyra kicked another weapon away and shouted, "This way." She led him down a narrow passage hidden behind one of the statues. The air grew colder and darker as they descended. The sounds of pursuit echoed faintly behind them. At the end of the tunnel, they stopped before a strange iron door, half open, covered in dust. Lyra placed her hand on it. "This part of the temple is forbidden," she said. "Even the priests don't come here." "Perfect," Ethan muttered. "That means they won't look for us." They stepped inside. The chamber beyond was filled with faint blue light. The walls weren't stone anymore, they were metal, covered in panels and circuits. Dust coated everything, but Ethan could see the shape of machines that looked human. He froze. "What the hell?" Lyra tilted her head. "You know these markings?" Ethan walked closer to the wall, wiping off the dust. There, beneath layers of grime, were letters carved in English. United Terran Research Mission 2049. He felt his chest tighten. This is human tech. Earth tech, Lyra's eyes widened. Then, humans were here before? Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from the corridor. The priests were close. Lyra grabbed his arm. "They'll find us. They'll destroy everything here." Ethan turned toward her, his mind racing. "Then we can't let them." He looked around the ancient chamber, eyes landing on a small control console still faintly glowing with power. "If this still works," he whispered, "it might change everything." Outside, heavy footsteps thundered closer. The priests were chanting again, their voices cold and hateful. Lyra looked at the console, then back at him. "What are you going to do?" Ethan cracked a small grin despite the danger. "Something stupid." He started pressing buttons. Sparks flew. The console hummed, lights flickering to life after centuries of silence. A deep vibration filled the floor. Lyra's eyes widened. "What is happening?" Ethan looked up at the ceiling as dust began to fall, waking up a secret they tried to bury. The doors behind them glowed orange as the priest's energy blast struck again and again. Vorn's furious voice echoed through the chamber. "You cannot hide from the gods, human. You have doomed yourself." Ethan turned to Lyra, breathing hard. "If I'm right, maybe we're about to meet your gods." A final blast hit the door, and the chamber filled with a deep, rising hum that drowned out every sound. The screen would fade to black, leaving the audience on edge. Something ancient, powerful, and human was about to awaken. The sound of the hum grew louder until it shook the floor beneath their feet. The blue lights in the hidden chamber flickered to life one by one, illuminating shapes that had been asleep for centuries. Metallic pods lined the walls, covered in dust and age. The air tasted of iron and electricity. Ethan stared at the glowing console, heart pounding. "This place, it's a power chamber," he muttered. "Old, maybe pre-colony tech. Someone's been feeding energy to the priests above." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, her silver pupils glowing in the dim light. "You mean, they used the gods' power to hurt us?" Ethan turned toward her. "No, they used your ancestors' power, our power." Before Lyra could answer, the iron door behind them exploded inward. The priests stormed in, robes fluttering like black fire. The leader, Vorn, stepped forward with his cracked staff, energy sizzling at the tip. His face twisted with rage. "You defile the holy core," he shouted. "You awaken what was forbidden." Ethan raised his hands. "Forbidden because it's not holy. It's human. Machines, not miracles." Vorn slammed his staff against the floor, and a surge of orange flame burst out. "Silence, creature of lies." Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him aside as the fire rolled across the floor. The old metal hissed, glowing red where it touched. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ethan coughed, waving the smoke away. "They're overloading the conduit," he said quickly. "If we don't stop them, the core could blow." "The core?" Lyra asked, fear trembling in her voice. He pointed at the glowing ring beneath the console, a pulsing circle of energy that now beat like a heart. "That thing is powering the entire temple. If it overheats, the whole mountain goes with it." Lyra's eyes widened. "Then what do we do?" Ethan didn't answer at first. His mind was racing, trying to remember what he'd read from the console's faint human text. Emergency release, manual override, stabilizer coil. He looked around the chamber until his gaze caught on a metal hatch above the pods. It glowed faintly blue. "We pull the stabilizer rods," he said. "If we remove them, the energy will drain safely, if we're lucky." "If we're lucky?" Lyra repeated, half in disbelief. He smirked, even as the heat grew unbearable. "Yeah, luck's all we've got left." Vorn's voice echoed again. "Stop them." The guards surged forward. Ethan sprinted for the wall, ducking under a beam of orange light that scorched the air. He leaped toward the ladder leading to the hatch. Lyra followed, her breathing ragged but determined. The priests fired again, bolts of fire striking the metal walls. One hit close enough to make the ladder shake violently. Lyra almost slipped, but Ethan caught her hand. "Keep going," he shouted. They reached the hatch. Ethan forced it open, revealing a chamber of swirling light beneath a transparent dome. Inside, a massive coil pulsed with orange and blue energy. It was beautiful and deadly. Ethan squinted. "That's the stabilizer. If we can pull those rods." A blast of energy hit the platform, throwing him forward. He crashed against the railing, pain shooting through his ribs. Lyra screamed. "Ethan!" He waved her off, pushing himself up. "I'm fine." "Get to the control node." Lyra hesitated. "I don't know how." "You'll figure it out." Below, the priest began to chant again. The temperature spiked. The walls groaned. The core flared brighter and brighter. Lyra ran to the glowing control ring. Strange symbols shimmered under her hands. She pressed one, then another. A warning tone filled the air. Ethan pulled the first rod free. Energy sparked around him, blinding light exploding across the chamber. He felt the vibration in his bones. "One down!" Lyra shouted. There are 3 more. Then move, he yelled, grabbing the next one. His muscles strained. The metal burned his palms, but he didn't stop. Another blast of fire tore through the ceiling, Vorn's final strike. You cannot stop divine will, the priest roared. Ethan turned, face covered in sweat and soot. No god made this, he growled. Humans did. He ripped the second rod free. The hum turned into a scream as the chamber began to collapse. Metal warped, air hissed, and blue light swallowed everything. Lyra pulled the last rod. For a moment, everything went silent, then boom, the floor split open. A shockwave of white light tore through the temple, racing up through the stone like lightning. The priests were thrown backward, their robes catching fire. Vorn screamed as the flames engulfed him, his staff shattering into shards of crystal. Ethan and Lyra fell, tumbling through the opening beneath the stabilizer. They hit something hard and rolled, coughing, blinded by smoke and falling dust. When Ethan finally opened his eyes, the temple above was gone. Only a gaping hole of light remained. Lyra lay beside him, trembling, her face streaked with ash. We're alive? Ethan nodded weakly. Barely. He looked around. They were in another tunnel, dark, cold, and full of broken metal. Ancient machines slept in the walls, glowing faintly. Lyra sat up slowly. You saved me again. Ethan smiled faintly, exhaustion weighing on him. Yeah, well, you're starting to make a habit of needing it. Lyra gave a shaky laugh through her tears. Then she turned to look at the carvings on the wall. Human shapes, symbols, words she didn't understand. What is this place? She whispered. Ethan stood, brushing dust from his jacket. He stared at the glowing figures with a strange look, part awe, part dread. It's not just a temple, Lyra. He stepped closer to the mural and touched one of the figures. It's a tomb, he said softly. A tomb for the first humans who came here. The light on the wall flickered, and one of the human figures turned its head, cut to black. For a long moment, neither Ethan nor Lyra moved. The air in the underground chamber shimmered with soft blue light, dust swirling like mist. The carved human figures on the wall seemed alive, their faces faintly glowing under the ancient circuitry embedded in the stone. Ethan froze, eyes wide. He blinked once, twice. No, he wasn't imagining it. One of the human figures carved into the mural was turning its head. Lyra gasped and stepped back. It's moving. How is it moving? The carved figure leaned forward slightly. A faint beam of blue light flickered from its chest, scanning the room. Then a hollow mechanical voice echoed through the silence. Human biometric match. Confirmed. Authorization restored. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. That's impossible, he whispered. The wall split down the middle with a hiss of steam, ancient locks unlocking one by one. Behind it, a dark corridor revealed itself, lined with glowing panels and thick cables. It wasn't stone at all, it was a bunker. Lyra clutched Ethan's sleeve, eyes wide. This was under the temple? He nodded slowly. They built their holy place right over this. The priest must have known. They've been hiding it. They stepped carefully into the corridor. The air was heavy with the smell of rust and old metal. Lights flickered to life as they passed, showing faded earth insignias and broken terminals. On one wall, Ethan saw a half-buried plaque that read Terra Outpost 9, Xenobiological Research Facility. Lyra touched the symbol with trembling fingers. Terra, that's your world? Yes, Ethan said quietly. Earth, her voice trembled. Then this means the gods the priests speak of were humans, Ethan finished for her. Long before your people learned to stand. Lyra's knees weakened and she sank against the wall, her mind spinning. We were told they came from the stars to test us. That they left because we were impure. Ethan sighed, running his hand along the metal panels. They didn't leave because of you. They probably never came back because something happened. Maybe war, maybe time. He looked down at her. But your priests, they twisted it into control. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Not fear this time, but heartbreak. All those people, all the pain, all the punishments, all for lies. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Now you know the truth, and maybe that means you can change it. Before Lyra could answer, a faint rumble echoed from above. The ceiling dusted down like falling snow. The priests, Ethan muttered. They're not done. A moment later, Vorn's voice boomed through some unseen speaker. Blasphemers! You think the gods will let you steal their secrets? You have awakened fire beyond your understanding, Ethan growled under his breath. He's using the temple's energy grid. He'll collapse this entire section if he overloads it. Lyra rose to her feet. Then we have to stop him. They ran deeper into the bunker, following the cables to a massive round door. Faded letters above it read Core Access. Ethan placed his hand on the scanner. The old system beeped weakly, then spoke. Authorization recognized. Commander Hale. Lyra blinked. Commander? Ethan looked stunned. That's my great-grandfather's name. The door slid open with a deep groan, revealing a massive chamber filled with light. At the center stood a glowing column of blue energy, the heart of the ancient outpost. But they weren't alone. High Priest Vorn stood on the platform, robes torn, eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, priests chanted, channeling orange flames into the air. You have brought the curse upon us all. Vorn shouted. Ethan stepped forward. You're the curse, Vorn! You've been burning your own people for generations, using tech you don't even understand. Vorn snarled. We understand enough. It gives us power, order. Without fear, the people are nothing. Lyra's voice rang out, trembling but fierce. Without truth, they are slaves. The chamber pulsed with energy. The blue light from the human core and the orange fire of the priest collided in midair, sparks flying. The floor cracked beneath them. Ethan ran to the main control panel. Lyra, help me reroute the power. If I can connect this system to the old communication beacon, we can show everyone outside the truth. Lyra nodded, racing to another console. Her fingers, guided by instinct and courage, pressed glowing symbols that responded to her touch. The priest screamed as the walls lit up with holograms, images of ancient humans standing beside Lyra's ancestors, teaching them, helping them grow. There were no whips, no fire, no punishments, only peace. Vorn's eyes widened in horror. No lies. The gods are not human. Ethan shouted over the roar of power. Then why does your temple run on our machines? The entire chamber began to quake. The holograms expanded, projecting through the tunnels, through the cracked ceiling, into the sky above. The people outside gasped as the night filled with glowing human faces, smiling gently, teaching, healing. The myth shattered before their eyes. Vorn screamed, charging toward Ethan, staff raised high. I'll silence you. But before he could strike, Lyra grabbed one of the old human rods from the console and slammed it against the platform. Energy exploded outward, throwing Vorn backward into the beam of light. He vanished in a burst of fire and smoke. Silence fell. The orange flames died. Only the blue glow remained, soft, steady, calm. Ethan turned to Lyra. She was shaking, but she managed a weak smile. Did we win? Ethan looked at the beam, still pulsing gently. No, he said softly. We just woke the truth. Above them, the projection still burned in the sky, showing the world what had been hidden for centuries. And somewhere deep in the base, a low voice, human, old, and mechanical, spoke once more. Transmission restored. Awaiting orders. Commander? Lyra's eyes met Ethan's. What does that mean? Ethan looked up, his expression caught between awe and fear. It means the past isn't dead yet. The light from the destroyed chamber still glowed faintly through the cracks in the ceiling. The once sacred temple above was nothing but rubble now, its chants replaced by silence. Smoke drifted in gentle swirls, illuminated by the soft blue pulse of the human core still beating at the center of the ancient bunker. Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, their faces dirty, their bodies aching, but they were alive. The echoes of the hologram still lingered in the air, showing flashes of humans teaching aliens, building, smiling. It was like ghosts from a forgotten age refusing to fade. Lyra's voice broke the silence first. They saw it, she whispered. All of them, the truth. The people above, the guards, the priests who survived. They all saw what really happened. Ethan nodded, running a hand through his dusty hair. Yeah, no one can unsee that now. She turned toward him, eyes still trembling with disbelief. All my life I was told humans were demons, that their machines destroyed worlds, that the priests were chosen to guard us from them. But the images showed something different. Ethan leaned against the console, breathing heavily. They weren't demons, just explorers, scientists maybe, trying to build something peaceful. Lyra lowered her gaze. Then what went wrong? He looked around at the scorched walls and melted metal. Maybe the same thing that always goes wrong. Fear, power. Someone decided truth was dangerous. The sound of crackling metal filled the silence. Then a faint hum rose again from the control panel. A broken hologram flickered to life. This time a human face appeared. It was a man, older, with dark eyes and a weathered expression. His uniform bore the same insignia Ethan had seen before. United Terra, Commander Hale, the voice said through static. If you're hearing this, then the mission failed. The native species turned against us after our departure was delayed. The leadership seized the temple's systems and turned them into tools of control. If anyone finds this message, remember, knowledge is the only salvation. The image glitched and vanished. Ethan stood frozen. The voice had said Commander Hale, the same name as his own. Lyra looked up at him. He spoke your name. Ethan swallowed hard. My great-grandfather. He led an early colony project. He was supposed to have vanished near this region of space. So you're his blood, Lyra said softly. Then maybe it was never fate that brought you here. Maybe it was. Memory calling you home, he gave a faint, sad smile. Maybe. The bunker trembled slightly, loose debris falling from the ceiling. The place was growing unstable after the overload. We have to move, Ethan said, glancing at the passage leading deeper below. There might be another exit through the lower tunnels. Lyra hesitated. But what about the people above? The priests still, they'll come looking for answers, he interrupted. But the truth's already loose. You saw it in their faces, didn't you? Fear, yes, but also doubt. Doubt spreads faster than fire. She nodded slowly and followed him down the narrow corridor. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. The tunnels were lined with smooth metal and faintly glowing veins of light, like rivers frozen beneath the surface. After some distance, they reached a massive door half buried in rock. It was carved not in human design, but in alien patterns, elegant flowing lines mixed with familiar mechanical grooves. Lyra ran her fingers across the markings. This isn't human, she murmured. It's both. Our kind and yours. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes tracing the hybrid symbols. Looks like your ancestors worked with mine. Maybe this was built together. She looked at him, her voice soft. Then maybe the gods weren't gods. Maybe they were family. The words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Ethan touched the center of the door. It vibrated beneath his palm, reading his DNA signature. With a slow hiss, the door slid open. Beyond it lay a vast chamber filled with golden light. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, but these weren't empty. They held figures inside, perfectly preserved. Some were human, others alien, and a few were both. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. What are they? Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Hybrids. He moved closer to one of the pods, wiping the glass. Inside lay a being with human features, soft skin, hair like his, but faint blue lines running beneath the surface, glowing like Lyra's. They were trying to build a bridge between species, he said, awe in his voice. To merge what was best in both worlds. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears. They were building peace. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. And someone buried it under fear and religion. A distant boom echoed through the tunnels, another explosion from above. Time was running out. Ethan turned toward Lyra. We need to wake them. If these hybrids are alive, even barely, they could prove everything. They could rebuild what was lost. Lyra looked at the console. Can we do it? Ethan studied the controls, fingers hovering over glowing keys. Maybe, but once we start it, every priest in the city will know. She stepped beside him, her face calm, resolute. Then let them come. Let them see what truth looks like. Ethan nodded slowly. He pressed his hand against the activation plate. The pods began to glow one by one, their energy pulsing like heartbeats. The golden light filled the chamber, spreading through the tunnels, through the cracks of the ruined temple, rising into the dark sky above. Outside, the people looked up as the heavens shimmered. The old god's fire was gone. In its place, a new light burned, warm, human, and alive. Lyra reached out, taking Ethan's hand. You came from the stars, she whispered, smiling faintly. Maybe. That's where our hope was hiding all along. Ethan looked at her, his voice low but steady. No, hope was right here, buried in truth. And as the first hybrid's eyes slowly opened, glowing with both human blue and alien silver, the world above began to change forever. The sky above the temple was no longer dark. It shimmered with waves of golden blue light rising from the cracks in the mountain. Every beam carried the truth. The faces of ancient humans and aliens working side by side. Their legacy no longer buried in shadows. But not everyone looked upon it with wonder. Far above the glowing tunnels, what remained of the order of priests gathered among the burning ruins. Their robes were torn, their once golden staffs cracked and blackened. At their center stood High Priest Vorn, his skin scorched, eyes still burning with blind fury. "They've desecrated everything," he roared. "The fire of the gods will not be extinguished by human lies." From the crowd of fearful followers, a few nodded, but many hesitated. They had seen the holograms. They had seen the truth. Doubt had begun to eat at their faith. Vorn raised his staff, orange light sparking from its broken crystal. "If they awaken what sleeps beneath, the gods' wrath will destroy this world. We must find them before they bring ruin to us all." Far below, in the dim glow of the hybrid chamber, Ethan and Lyra worked quickly among the stasis pods. The air hummed with power as the old system stirred back to life. Steam rose as one of the pods released its seals. Inside, a figure stirred, a young woman with pale bronze skin and faint blue veins glowing under her arms. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing irises half-human brown, half-alien silver. Lyra gasped softly. "She's alive," Ethan nodded, eyes fixed on the console. "Vitals are weak but stable. The others will follow soon." He wiped sweat from his brow. The energy readings spiked again, unstable but controllable. These pods were meant to preserve hybrid life indefinitely. "They're waking up faster than I expected." Lyra watched as another pod flickered to life, then another. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Like both worlds breathing together, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Exactly what the priests feared most, unity. But before he could say more, a tremor shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling. Alarms blinked red. Lyra's expression turned to fear. "They're coming." Ethan looked at the motion scanner, hundreds of life forms moving down the tunnels toward them. "Yeah, and they're bringing an army." He turned to the newly awakened hybrid woman who blinked up at him in confusion. "Can you understand me?" Her voice was faint but clear. "Yes, you are human. Where is Commander Hale?" Ethan hesitated. "He's gone." "I'm his descendant," the woman's eyes widened slightly. "Then the mission continues." Before Ethan could respond, the walls vibrated again. Loud metallic footsteps echoed through the tunnels, the priest soldiers armored and armed with energy staffs. Lyra grabbed his arm. "We can't fight them all." Ethan's gaze darted around. The chamber was collapsing. The power surge from the awakening pods was overloading the old systems. He pointed to a narrow side tunnel. "We move now." He helped the hybrid woman to her feet, guiding her and Lyra toward the exit. The light from the pods flickered behind them as more of the hybrids stirred, their breathing shallow but steady. As they ran through the tunnel, the sound of pursuit grew louder. The orange glow of the priests' torches filled the darkness behind them. Vorn's voice thundered through the halls. "You cannot flee from the divine. The god's flame will purify your corruption." Ethan shouted back without turning. "Your gods were men, and men can bleed." Lyra nearly stumbled from exhaustion, but Ethan caught her hand, pulling her along. The tunnel ahead opened into a wide chasm, filled with hanging bridges made of ancient metal. Below, rivers of molten energy flowed, remnants of the outpost's power core. Ethan stopped to catch his breath. "We can lose them here." Lyra stared down at the dizzying drop. "Or fall and die." "Let's try not to," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. They started across the first bridge, the metal creaking under their weight. Behind them, the priest's torches appeared in the darkness, dozens of glowing eyes drawing closer. Halfway across, an energy blast hit the bridge. The structure shook violently. Lyra screamed as the hybrid woman stumbled. Ethan grabbed both their hands, holding on tight as the bridge swayed above the glowing abyss. "Keep moving," he shouted. Another blast. Chains snapped. The far end of the bridge tilted downward. Lyra and the hybrid climbed first. Ethan followed, gripping the torn metal. The heat from below seared his skin. Just as the last chain snapped, he leapt forward, barely catching the ledge. Lyra grabbed his wrist with both hands, pulling with all her strength until he rolled onto solid ground beside her. They collapsed, panting. The priest's army stood on the opposite side of the chasm now, unable to cross. Vorn's furious voice echoed through the heat. "You think you can escape judgment? You've doomed your kind and hers." Ethan sat up slowly, glaring across the chasm. No. You doomed yourself the moment you chose lies over truth. The ground trembled again. The river of energy below them surged brighter, molten light spreading like fire. Lyra's voice was small, trembling. The core, it's going to blow again, isn't it? Ethan looked toward the tunnel ahead. Yeah, and we're not going to wait around to find out. He helped them up, guiding both women toward the exit tunnel that led upward, toward the surface, toward the light. Behind them, the first bridge collapsed completely, taking several priests down into the glowing abyss. Their screams echoed, fading into silence. Lyra looked back once, her face pale in the flickering glow. It's over, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. Not yet. The truth's out, but the fight's just starting. They climbed toward the faint light at the end of the tunnel. The hybrid woman followed, her voice soft but steady. The others will awaken soon. They will need protection. Ethan nodded grimly. Then we give them one. As they reached the surface, dawn was breaking over the ruined city. The air was filled with ash, smoke, and golden light from the reopened temple core. For the first time, Lyra saw the sunrise not as a believer, but as a witness to truth. Ethan stood beside her, eyes fixed on the horizon. The old world's burning, he said quietly, but maybe that's what it takes to start a new one. The first rays of dawn spilled across the broken city, painting the ruins in gold and ash. Smoke curled from what had once been the Temple of the Gods. Its great spires now lay scattered like the bones of giants. The people stood in the streets, silent, shaken, watching the sky that glowed faintly with the holographic echoes of human faces. For the first time in centuries, the old myths were gone. Only questions remained. Ethan and Lyra emerged from the cracked tunnel, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dirt. Behind them, the hybrid woman followed, weak but standing, her eyes glowing with the strange beauty of two species merged as one. The city was in chaos. Crowds gathered among the rubble, some weeping, others arguing, some simply staring at the light above. Ethan could see it in their eyes, fear fighting against awakening. Lyra took a trembling breath. They've seen everything, she whispered. The truth can't be undone now. Ethan nodded. Truth's only the beginning. What comes next is choice. A distant sound rolled through the city. Drums, horns, the organized march of soldiers. Lyra's face tensed. The priest's army. They won't stop even after all this. Ethan turned toward the horizon where the temple once stood proud. There, through the haze, he saw High Priest Vorn, his robe scorched but his spirit unbroken. He stood atop the shattered altar, a staff of cracked crystal in his hands, flames swirling around him like serpents. Citizens of Oralis, Vorn's voice echoed across the ruins. Do not listen to the blasphemers. The gods test our faith. The fire will return and those who kneel will be spared. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some dropped to their knees again out of fear. Others hesitated, torn between the old and the new. Lyra's voice trembled with anger. He still twists everything. Even after seeing the truth, he's still lying. Ethan's gaze hardened. Then we stop him, for good this time. He turned toward the hybrid woman. You said the others would awaken soon. How many? Dozens, she said softly. They will follow your signal. Ethan exhaled, his mind racing. Then we give them one. He pulled a small metal device from his belt, a beacon salvaged from the bunker below. The human insignia gleamed faintly on its side. This connects to the old orbital network. If it still works, it'll broadcast a message across every surviving screen, every comm line. Lyra's eyes widened. You're going to tell the whole world. Not me, he said. Us. They climbed the hill of broken stone toward the remains of the altar. Every step echoed through the tense silence. The people turned to watch them, two figures climbing toward the false god side by side, carrying light instead of fire. Vorn saw them and raised his staff. You dare return, human? You and your traitor? Ethan stopped a few paces away. We're not your enemies, Vorn. You are worshipping corpses and lies. But there's still time to choose truth. Vorn laughed bitterly. Truth burns. Faith endures. He slammed the staff into the ground. A burst of flame erupted, swirling high, forming the shape of a great burning figure in the sky. The crowd screamed and fell back. Lyra stepped forward, voice shaking but strong. No more fear, she cried. You said the gods watched us, but it was humans. They came to help us, not rule us. Vorn turned his fury toward her. And you would let their corruption spread again? Look around, child. Fire built this city. Fire kept order! Fire destroyed it, she said quietly. Ethan pressed the beacon against the broken altar. Lights blinked red, then green. The holographic sky above flickered and shifted. No longer fire, no longer gods, just faces. Real faces. Humans smiling, laughing, building. Then came the hybrids working beside them, equal and alive. The images filled every screen, every sky panel. The truth itself spoke louder than any sermon. The crowd stared in awe. Some wept openly. Others dropped their weapons. The soldiers hesitated. Vorn roared, charging at Ethan. Lies! But Lyra stepped in front of him, raising one of the hybrid rods she'd carried from the chamber. The rod glowed blue-white, humming with power. Your time is over, she said, and struck the ground. A shockwave of light burst outward. Vorn was thrown backward, his staff shattering in his hands. The flames vanished. The people gasped. The old fire was gone, and yet the world still stood. Ethan helped Lyra steady herself. You okay? She smiled weakly. I just spoke for everyone who was ever silenced. The hybrid woman approached, the morning light gleaming off her skin. The others are waking. They will need guidance. Ethan looked out over the city, the people rising, looking around, uncertain but unshackled. You'll have it, he said, from both of us. Lyra turned to him, voice soft. You're leaving, aren't you? He hesitated. There's more out there, more buried truths. If my great-grandfather's mission was to unite, I can't stop here. She nodded, eyes glistening. Then promise you'll return. Ethan smiled faintly. You have my word, Lyra. A soft hum rose in the distance. The ancient human ship from the ruins, now fully powered by the hybrid core. Ethan stepped toward it, the wind whipping his coat, the dawn light in his eyes. He turned back once more to see Lyra standing on the temple steps, the people gathering around her, the hybrids behind her like living proof of rebirth. You'll do fine, he called out. You've already started something they can't burn away. She smiled through her tears. Goodbye, Ethan of Earth. He gave a small salute, then entered the ship. The engines flared to life, glowing the same soft blue as the light that now covered the city. As it rose into the sky, the people looked up, not in fear, but in wonder. For the first time in history, they saw the heavens not as the home of gods, but as the birthplace of truth. Lyra stood tall, her hair glowing in the light, and whispered, Every world deserves a dawn. The ship vanished into the clouds, leaving behind trails of silver fire that curved like wings across the morning sky. And so began the age of the forgotten truth, a world reborn, not by faith, but by courage.